Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mainstream Mortgages Podcast. I'm Colton Buja with my business partners, Derek and Peter, as always.
Hello.
So, today's topic is about being a first time homebuyer. We're going to jump right into it. And so, Derek, what does it really mean to be a first time homebuyer?
Well, most people would think that it is exactly what it sounds like. And for the most part, it is. If you've never bought a home before, then you're probably a first-time home buyer. But not always. The CRA has a specific definition of what a first-time home buyer is. So it's best to make sure you're aware of that. I mean, talk to a mortgage broker. They'll help you, through that definition because it can be kind of weird. Essentially, if you have not lived in a home that you or your spouse or common law partner have owned in the past 4 years, then you're probably a first-time home buyer.
Or if you
So,
get
Peter,
divorced or separated, you're a
yeah, I
first
was going to
home
say,
home
is there
buyer.
more to that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
your first home buyerness can grow back if you get divorced or separated.
And if you are a disabled person or if you are in the care of a disabled person, that could qualify you as well.
100%.
So, Peter, what's the very first step someone should take as a first time homebuyer?
Well, of course, you should. There's like a million things to do, but the first step you should do is call us at Mainstream Mortgages and we'll handle the other 900,000 things to do. And we're going to walk you through it through our process. But I think you really need to be realistic about what your budget is, what you can afford. And maybe if you're moving out of your parents' house, like what expenses you're expected to pay and a little anecdote from my first time when I bought a house in 1997. I was 22 years old. I moved out, moved in, paid my down payment, was making my mortgage payments. 3 months later, I got a bill in the mail, water bill. I phoned my mom. I'm like, you have to pay for water? And it was just my naivete was showing. But I mean, there's a lot of things that you should factor in your budget that maybe you're not used to spending: water, insurance, electricity, your internet, your like just put everything into that household budget, which we do have a really great budget worksheet you can work through and see if that's what what you can actually afford. Because don't forget, a mortgage salesperson is going to pre-qualify you to the max you qualify for, which doesn't always translate into what you're comfortable paying.
Perfect. So I'm gonna go off of that a little bit. So Derek, what other costs are associated on top of the down payment with buying a home, your first home?
Yeah, one of the big things that we notice from first-time home buyers is that they aren't aware of closing costs, right? Everybody knows that you need a down payment, but most people aren't aware that there's also closing costs that will be required on top of the down payment. What are closing costs? Mostly it's the legal fees. You got to go through a lawyer when you purchase a home, and so there's going to be legal fees there, and there's also going to be a land transfer tax. All in all, we like to tell people to budget for anywhere between 2 to 3% of the purchase price for closing costs. But yeah, I think that answers that question.
Can I jump in there
Per
too? Actually, I just want to
Sure.
say, like, when you're qualifying for a mortgage, the standard is to assume 1.5% for closing costs. So in certain provinces, your closing costs are a lot closer to that, but in Manitoba, we're much closer to 2.5%. And there's kind of like a hidden closing cost that can rear its ugly head once in a while, and that's called a property tax adjustment. So we never know if that's going to rear its ugly head or not. And what a property tax adjustment is the person that's selling you the home has paid their property taxes till the end of the year in full. Most of us pay monthly, but some people like to pay in full. So if you're taking possession of your new house in July and they've paid their property taxes till the end of December, you as the purchaser have to refund them that money. So we never really know if that's going to happen or not until it does. So that's why we take our 2.5%, and Derek says between 2.5% and 3% to account for that potentially surprise property tax adjustment.
Good point.
Right. I know we've all heard stories about not our clients, of course, but people not being aware of the amount of closing costs and just being blown away or not ready for the total at their lawyers, right? It can be an overwhelming amount on top of the down payment. So speaking of down payment, Peter, what is the minimum down payment a first-time home buyer is required to have?
It's 5%. And not only limited to first-time home buyers, but 5% is the minimum. Plus, you're going to have to factor in those closing costs as previously mentioned.
Yes, that
Right.
5% is restricted to if you're going to be moving into the home. If you're a first-time home buyer and you want to buy a rental property, then the minimum is going to be 20%, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So kind of diving into it a little more in depth here, how important is my credit score as a first-time home buyer? What's the minimum and how do I go about things if it's close to the minimum?
I'll go.
Derek.
Oh,
Okay, or Peter, doesn't matter.
Go
I was
ahead,
going to
Peter.
say, like, the minimum credit score to qualify for mortgage insurer guidelines, the ones who provided the default insurance, is 600, but that's not really true. 600 is the minimum they'll consider, but once you sort of are hovering around 600, rather than being much more above average credit score, like 680 and above, like we need to provide really good rationale for why your credit scores low like that. And like some common factors that could affect it is maybe you're close to the limit on your credit card, maybe your interest got charged to your credit card and put you over your limit. That can really hurt your score. You've missed some payments, a lot of things. So credit score is such a humongous component for a first-time home buyer to consider that you really need to make it a priority.
Would you say that's a common mistake of first-time home buyers that they just simply don't utilize their credit correctly or maybe don't understand it, so it's really impacting their qualification?
Well, I think, as an old person, uh, I can certainly go back to my 20s when I was younger and less wise. And there was no one really taught you about your finances like growing up, other than your parents. So, I mean, in my 20s, I was fast and loose with my credit card, and maybe I didn't have the best credit score. So, I think it's really important that if you are planning on buying a home, that in advance you really maybe get a copy of your credit bureau from one of the credit reporting agencies or talk to us. And I mean, we have a whole list of people that we're helping solve credit issues for and trying to get their score to a place where we can lend to them.
I can actually add to that with my own experience as well. Peter, you mentioned that you were maybe a little bit fast and loose when you were trying to, with your credit score, when you were trying to buy your first home. I was maybe the opposite. I didn't have credit history, right? And I didn't realize when I went to the bank, because I didn't know what a mortgage broker was at the time. The bank told me, well, you only qualify for this much because you don't really have much credit history. And I thought, well, what the heck? I've been banking with you for literally decades. And it didn't seem to matter, right? So yes, fast and loose credit can hurt you, and so can lack of credit.
Makes sense. So I'll stay with you, Derek. What other common mistakes do you see with first-time home buyers when applying for their first purchase?
Um, Honestly, the biggest mistake that I see is that they ask their mom and dad what they should do. And no disrespect to all the moms and dads out there, but a lot of the time the moms and the dads say, "Well, I've bought a home, 3, 4 times in the past. I know what this is all about." But honestly, things change. Regulations change all the time. Mom and dad don't necessarily know what it's like to be a first-time home buyer in this day and age, right? So that's my number one that I would say for that question. Peter, do you have any others?
I think setting realistic expectations is probably a big mistake. Everybody sort of wants their dream house right off the bat. And I mean, with today's market and today's qualification challenges that we have, like you're probably not getting into your 15-year house right off the bat. You're probably going to be buying your 3 to 4 year house, 3 to 5 year house right off the bat. And the property ladder concept has really come back into play. So you might have to get a 2 bedroom, 1 bath starter home that isn't something that you want to maybe start your family in and make do with until you can do it. But I mean, I think the biggest mistake too for a first-time home buyer is to wait and see. I mean, especially the last 15 years, the market has gone up and up and up and up, with maybe a few little blips where we plateaued for a bit or maybe had a little dip. But I mean, people who bought their house in 2018, 2019 are seeing 50 to 100% increases in their home value. So I think the best advice I could give to somebody to avoid that mistake is don't necessarily wait. And I have a really great story about that, which would take too much time. But the gist was the clients wanted a certain house with a double attached garage, but they kept waiting and saving and waiting and saving and waiting and saving. And during this time, the price of the house kept going up. So when we started, I happened to have a friend who was selling their house. I said, take this house. It has a double detached garage. It was in a really nice neighborhood. They didn't want to spend 255,000 on it. So they waited 4 years. And by the time they bought the house, they couldn't afford what they wanted. They ended up buying the same house I had suggested, which was really weird. But instead of paying 255,000 at the time, they ended up paying 330,000. So don't wait. Just, figure out what you can live with. Talk to a realtor, get your pre-approval from a expert mortgage broker team like us, and then get on that property ladder.
Yeah, the biggest mistake is not using a mortgage broker as a first-time buyer. We can really help
Yeah,
you out.
honestly.
I just wanted to add one thing there, and I think it's a common misconception is that just because you pay $1,800 in rent does not mean you qualify for a mortgage payment of
Right.
eighteen hundred
Yeah.
dollars. That's the biggest thing I see when going through people's applications. It's not just apples to apples, simple math, unfortunately. So it's just something to keep in mind as always. So one last question: are there any government programs or incentives for first-time home buyers?
Yeah,
Coach.
so there is the first time home buyer program, which is you can take out up to 65,000 of your RSP tax free without, the normal penalties of withdrawing from your RSP. And you have about 15 years, I believe it is, to pay it back.
Mhm.
And that can go towards anything. It can go towards the down payment of the house. It can go towards other costs, moving costs, all that kind of stuff, closing costs. And the other program, I guess, would be a tax credit. There's a first-time homebuyer tax credit. I believe it's at the end of the day, you get $750 back from the government when you claim that you bought your first home.
I'm jumping in there because there's
Yeah.
also a new banking account you can get called the First Time Home Savings Account.
Savings.
And that's going to allow you up to contribute up to $8,000 per calendar year. You have to do it in advance of your purchasing your home. And that gives you a tax credit as well. So that's another great thing. And a previous episode of Mainstream Mortgages podcast was the Manitoba Métis Federation First Time Home Purchase Plan, which allows Métis citizens to get a forgivable grant up to $20,500. So there's a lot of things that people need to know, and taking advantage of these programs can provide you a little bit more money or a little bit more relief down the road.
And you're allowed to go up to a 30-year amortization on an insured mortgage as a first-time home buyer as well, which is
Yeah.
recently
Right.
new. And I wasn't going to let us forget about the MMF program. That was at the top of my head
Yeah.
going into this. So unless we have anything else to add on your guys' end, I think that wraps up today's episode.
Just a little mention, if you could like and subscribe our podcast, it really helps us out. And if you need any mortgage advice, we're always here to help.
Yeah, here to
Absolutely.
help at great rates at mainstreammortgages.com or 431-482-2187. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.